Captain Ral'ith Ven'dak of the Varlian Imperial Fleet stared out the bridge viewports at the unassuming blue-green world hanging in the inky blackness. Earth, the homeworld of one of the most paradoxical species he had ever encountered. Scan readings confirm it. This primitive planet harbors the humans, his science officer, Crendal, reported. Shall I initiate the invasion protocols? Ral'ith held up a hand to pause the over-eager Crendal. The humans were an utter enigma that had vexed the Varlians for centuries. On one hand, they were a relatively young race, still bound to a single planet with limited interstellar capabilities. Their technology level was vastly inferior, their physical abilities unremarkable. And yet, this upstart species had displayed a tenacity, an ingenuity, a sheer dogged refusal to be bound by limitations that was virtually unparalleled in the galaxy. Every time the Varlians thought they had the humans' measure, the clever primates would pull off some stunning feat that defied all odds and predictions. Like the time a small human exploration vessel had inadvertently wandered into Varlian space, only to be set upon by Ral'ith's own flagship and its escort of heavily armed cruisers. The primitive human craft was hopelessly outgunned, yet the crew had improvised a desperate maneuver, shunting all power to their sublight engines in a bravado-fueled burst of speed that allowed them to slingshot around the flagship at point-blank range. The insane gambit had overloaded the flagship's sensors with a colossal electromagnetic surge, blinding the mighty vessel just long enough for the plucky humans to make their escape. Or the time human diplomats had been captured while on a fact-finding mission to the Dregel hives. The xenophobic Dregel routinely tortured and executed alien captives for sport. Yet the human prisoners had displayed an almost supernatural ability to endure the most excruciating torments, while never breaking. When at last they were set to be publicly executed, the humans had produced hidden weapons and triggered an explosive distraction, seizing the opportunity to overpower their guards and fight their way to freedom in a blaze of glory. Time and again, the humans had demonstrated abilities far beyond their technological and physical limitations. It was as if they harbored some innate evolutionary advantage, some metaphysical well of resilience and adaptability that allowed them to defy the odds in even the most dire circumstances. Which brought Ral'ith to his current predicament. The Varlian Empire had grown weary and disdainful of these upstart humans constantly disrupting the status quo of the galaxy. They had decided it was past time to deal with this irritant once and for all by invading and subjugating their homeworld. But Ral'ith knew better than to underestimate the humans. A frontal assault could easily devolve into a protracted quagmire of asymmetrical warfare that would bleed his forces dry. No, he needed a more subtle approach, one that played to the humans' own overconfidence and desire to prove their superiority. "Belay that invasion order, Crendal," Ral'ith said at last. "We will extend an official diplomatic request to open negotiations with the human leadership." Crendal's crest-tails twitched in surprise. "You cannot be serious, Captain? To treat with these primitives as equals?" "Make no mistake, this is merely an opening gambit," Ral'ith assured him. "We will use these humans' arrogance and insatiable ambition against them. Once they take the bait, their downfall will be inevitable." 6 months later, on the human homeworld, Admiral Trisha Landry read over the latest briefing documents from Starfleet intelligence with a furrowed brow. The Varlians, a powerful, highly advanced species from the galactic core, had reached out to Earth's fledgling interstellar government to open diplomatic relations and extend an offer of technical and scientific cooperation. At first, Trisha's instincts had warned her to be cautious. Humanity's first encounters with alien civilizations had been rocky, to say the least. Too many species had underestimated and dismissed humans as upstarts, only to be unpleasantly surprised by their tenacity and ingenuity. But the more she studied the Varlians, the more it became clear that they were different. Their society was stable, ethical, and possessed of wisdom far beyond humanity's limited experience. If any alien race could be trusted as partners, it was them, which was why she had advocated so strongly for accepting the Varlians' offer. Earth's technologies were still in their infancy compared to the galaxy at large. This could be the big break they needed to finally take their rightful place among the stars. And so it was that a joint Varlian-human expedition was formed to undertake an ambitious scientific endeavor, the construction of an experimental hyper-transwarp drive that could open a stable Einstein-Rosen bridge across vast intergalactic distances instantaneously. If successful, it would revolutionize all concepts of interstellar travel. The expedition was headquartered aboard Starbase Ares, a newly constructed orbital facility in Mars orbit. There, human and Varlian scientists and engineers worked side by side to design and build the hyper-transwarp drive's massive particle accelerator array. Among the human contingent was Lieutenant Jaina Korinas, a brilliant young engineer who had been hand-picked for the project. Jaina was in awe of the Varlians' advanced knowledge, and she spent every waking hour peppering them with questions and soaking up all she could. Particularly intriguing was her burgeoning friendship with Crendal, the Varlian science lead. At first, the gruff alien scientist had been disdainful of the overconfident human's persistent queries. But he came to respect her insatiable curiosity and innovative mind, qualities the Varlians had long claimed to value in humans. "You are an intriguing paradox, Korinas," Crendal rumbled one day as they were running a simulation test. "Your species is so frustratingly primitive in many ways, and yet you possess this remarkable gift for deviating from conventional thinking. It is as if you are not bound by the same limitations as other species." Jaina shrugged with a cocky grin. "What can I say? We humans like to keep you on your toes." As the weeks rolled on, the hyper-transwarp array took shape, a massive ring of superconducting magnets and antimatter injectors. At last, the day arrived for the first live field test. Jaina and Crendal stood side by side in the control room, running last-minute diagnostics while the rest of the team stood by. "Initiating antimatter injection sequence," Crendal intoned, triggering the array to slowly power up. Energy levels spiked as the massive structure began generating its own artificial singularity. On the main view screen, a swirling vortex of distorted space-time appeared in the center of the array. Jaina's console was showing increasingly erratic readings. "Graviton resonance fields are fluctuating wildly," she warned. "We may need to abort." "Nonsense," Crendal said dismissively. "These calculations are flawless. The array simply requires a few more megajoules to stabilize the transwarp conduit." Before Jaina could protest further, Crendal triggered the array to vent its entire reserve of antimatter into the vortex. The energetic backlash slammed her against the wall. The wind knocked from her lungs. When her vision cleared, she saw the view screen showing the vortex had transformed into a roiling, unstable whirlpool of energy that crackled ominously. "Crendal, what did you do?" she gasped. The Varlian scientist turned to face her, his features twisted in a sneer of contempt. "Foolish human. Did you really think we meant to share the secrets of our technology with a backward species like yours?" Jaina felt her blood run cold as realization set in. This whole thing, it was a setup from the beginning. "Indeed," Crendal said with a cruel laugh. "The hyper-transwarp array was never meant to create a stable conduit. Its true purpose is to generate an artificial singularity that will consume your pathetic little world, removing the human infestation from our galaxy once and for all." Jaina stared at the view screen in horror as the singularity grew more powerful by the second, devouring all matter and energy in its path. At this rate, it would reach critical mass in a matter of minutes, creating a cataclysmic event horizon that would swallow the Earth and Mars whole. She had been a fool, blinded by her own arrogance and humanity's insatiable drive to reach for the stars at any cost. Now that ambition would be their undoing. No, she would not simply resign herself to this fate. Not while she still drew breath. Jaina was human, and if there was one thing her species did better than any other, it was to defy the impossible. Scrambling to her console, she bypassed the security lockouts and initiated an emergency vent protocol, shunting every ounce of reserve power from the station's reactors and batteries into the array's magnetic field projectors. "What are you doing?" Crendel roared as the station's lights flickered. "You'll destabilize the singularity." "That's the idea, you overgrown reptile," Jaina shouted back, even as the station shuddered around them from the massive energies being redirected. On the view screen, the singularity's event horizon rippled and distorted violently as Jaina's makeshift solution disrupted its gravitational field. For a moment, it seemed to freeze in place, straining against the forces, trying to tear it apart. Then, with a silent implosion of light, the singularity collapsed in on itself, winking out of existence in a single blinding instant. The array powered down, the threat averted. Jaina allowed herself a ragged sigh of relief. She turned to see Crendel and the other Varlians staring at her with expressions of utter shock and disbelief on their alien features. "Like I said," she told them, unable to keep the smug tone from her voice, "we humans like to keep you on your toes." From that day forth, the Varlians never again underestimated the tenacity and ingenuity of the human species. For in defying the impossible yet again, the humans had well and truly proven themselves the ascendant species of the galaxy.